thinking that it's fine, but it's futile every time. Living on my own strength, so plain that I go with her because of beauty. That old game, the old heads put me on.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a quick Bible study and also a word of encouragement. Today we're going to be we're speaking from Genesis 29. It's only a few chapters long, so make sure that you make the time to go ahead and read this. This is about when Jacob left his homeland. That's what's basically been going on. And he left his homeland and he went to where his uncle Laban lived. Okay, his uncle had two daughters. Leah was the oldest and Rachel was the youngest. Okay, Jacob took notice of Rachel, which is the youngest one. Okay, the Bible describes her as being beautiful, and it describes Leah, the oldest one, as not as beautiful as her younger sister. She was basically okay, but that's not who Jacob wanted. So Jacob made a deal with his uncle, and Jacob decided that with his uncle he was going to make a deal. And the deal was basically that he would work for 7 years for Rachel, the youngest one. Okay, and so Laban said, okay, that's fine, I agree. But what Laban did is he tricked Jacob. He gave Jacob Leah at night. So it's not until the next morning when Jacob woke up and he's like, why are you here? You know, what's going on? And he confronted his uncle. And his uncle says, well, it's custom that the oldest one gets married first and then the youngest. And he was like, but that's not what we agreed on. And then Laban's like, okay, well, if you work for me 7 more years, I'll give you both of them. And he said, wait a week, stay with Leah, and then after a week, I'll give you the second one as well. And so Jacob worked 14 years total for these women. Okay, that's Jacob's part. Now we're going to talk about the two women because that's what this Bible study. So as you can see by the title, this is dealing with rejection. Jacob wanted Rachel, the younger sister, and the Bible describes Rachel as being more beautiful than Leah. So in this aspect, Leah felt very rejected, and she says it within the story, you know, that she's been rejected. And as a matter of fact, she named many of her kids after her sorrow. Okay, and so I want to ask, you know, how many times have we felt rejected? Not just by being with someone, but what about a job? Like you felt like you deserved something more than someone else, or a position, or a title, or whatever it may be. You felt like you deserved it more than someone, and someone else got it instead of you. So someone else got it over you, and think about that rejection that you feel. Think about that pain, and you questioning, you know, well, why did they make that choice? And even questioning yourself, you know, and blaming yourself and say, well, maybe I did something wrong, or maybe it was me. And, you know, all those thoughts that go through our minds. Leah was, you know, she felt bad because this is her husband. She's given herself to this man physically, and he's basically made it known that you're not the one that I wanted. So when she started having children, she started naming those children after her sorrow, after her pain. She was naming those children in hopes, and even naming them like, oh, my husband despises me. My husband doesn't want me. And below in the description box, I will put the names of the children and also put the meaning of their names. It's not until the fourth child, that she's finally that she names that child after God. And so that fourth child is when she names that child something that will bring glory to God. And that name is Judah. And you see that name Judah in the Old Testament, and you also see it in the New Testament, like the line of Judah, the tribe of Judah. You see the name Judah referenced so often in the Bible. And the reason being is because that child was named as in honor of God. It wasn't about after her pain, after her sorrow. How many times do we do things in our bitterness? Or how many times do we name a period in our time, or we even say, I'm having a bad day? We could have had one bad moment, but now we're saying, I'm having a bad day, or I'm having a bad week. We could have had one bad moment, but it's just, I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad week. How many times do we do that? Or we even say it's just one thing after another. Oh my gosh, just so many bad things are happening. How many times do we allow our frustration, our current hurt to define who we are? And so just think about that for a moment, And so I want to tie this into how this is related to, I've had several situations where I've felt rejected, But the one that God pointed out to me today, or reminded me of today, was 6 years ago. This guy that I was involved with, I don't remember what we're talking about in particular, but it just got to the, I asked him a question, and then he basically let me know that he didn't want to be with me. And I'm like, well, why are we still doing this? And why are we still doing this? If that's what it is. And I had already realized, okay, this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. I knew it deep inside, but it took for him to literally verbally be so cold that day and to verbally reject me, for me to turn back. And it took for that to happen for me to turn back and say, you know what? I need to give my life to God. I need to focus on God. I need to get my relationship back with God. Just like Leah, when she was naming those kids, she was naming them after her sorrow, after her pain, after her husband who didn't want to be with her. She finally decided that fourth child, I'm going to name him after God, give God glory. And God took that Judah and blessed it and continued to bless it. And it's not until we turn from our pain, from our frustration, and just give God glory that he will bless it, that he will bless us, that he will pour into us, that he will strengthen us. If we don't go before him and say, God, this is what I'm dealing with, then what is it that you really expect to happen? And I'm telling this to myself, okay? What is it that we expect to happen if we're not going to God, if we're not telling God, hey, I'm dealing with this, I need your help? The same way Leah gave that fourth child to God is the same way we need to give our hearts and our minds back to God. We need to keep our eyes focused on him. We need to turn our focus back on him, because everything else that's going on around us, it's only there to distract us. If we start naming our seasons, naming our time, naming our lives after the stuff that we're going through, then what is that really going to benefit us? We're going to stay in that sorrow. We're going to stay in that pain. It got so bad that Leah was competing with her sister Rachel. The two of them kept going back and forth to see who can have the many kids. Leah started saying, you know what? I will give you this to trade you for time with my husband. They got so desperate. Rachel got so desperate that she gave her husband her maid servants, her women servants, to sleep with him, because at that point she could not produce her own children. So she even gave her maid servants him so that he could have children from her. When we don't focus on God, we get desperate, That situation that I was in 6 years ago, I had gotten desperate. I was so into the foolish. I was stuck in that foolishness for so long. I had gotten so accustomed to the foolishness and so much of the back and forth. And it's not until that man verbally said out his mouth, I don't want to be with you, for me to say, you know what? I'm done with this, But before then, I knew better. But I had gotten so desperate, just like the two sisters had gotten so desperate that they just started doing all type of foolishness for the attention of a man. I was so desperate that I was doing all type of foolishness just to deal with this person or to stay with this person. What foolishness are we doing? Who are you competing with? What are you stressing yourself over? And what are you getting desperate over instead of what are you doing with your time instead of what you're supposed to be doing? What are you focusing on? What are you becoming so desperate for that you're not even paying attention to God, that you're not even glorifying God, that you're not giving your heart to God, that you're not keeping your mind on God? What is it? What rejection have you dealt with, and what area of your life is it affecting so much so that you're forgetting to incorporate God? That you're forgetting that maybe, like they say, man's rejection was God's protection. What is it that you're dealing with that you're forgetting that, you know what, this did not happen for me? It could be that God is protecting me from that very thing, or it might not even be the timing. Or it might not be with that person. Whatever the situation is, it might not be with that company if it's a job. But what is it that we're not focusing, we're not keeping our eyes on God, that we're not glorifying God even still? What is it?